Mr. To Lam is the new face of Vietnam's next generation of leadership. At 66, he was sworn in as Vietnam's president in May, after which he paid visits to neighboring Laos and Cambodia. But the trip to China this Sunday is his first overseas stop since his appointment as the General Secretary of Vietnam's governing Communist Party, the country's highest political office, just 2 weeks ago.
The reason I emphasize the importance of the visits to Beijing by Secretary General and President To Lam, the visits in his both capacity as the party Secretary General and also the President, I think it also emphasizes the importance of the state-to-state and party-to-party relationships between Vietnam and China.
Vietnam's political power is shared among top 4 pillars: the General Secretary of the Communist Party, the President, Prime Minister, and the Chair of National Assembly, Vietnam's lawmaking body. Mr. Lam now occupies 2 of the 4 positions. He heads both the country and the governing Communist Party, like the Chinese President Xi Jinping does in Beijing. And as is the case in China now, Mr. Lam also holds Vietnam's highest military office as Secretary of the party's Central Military Commission, a position he naturally assumes as party chief. Vietnam's Foreign Minister Bùi Thanh Sơn told local media that the state visit to Beijing this time will be another milestone, opening a new period in Vietnam-China relations. Analysts say a key purpose of the visit is for the new Vietnamese top leader to establish a personal rapport with the Chinese leadership.
In Vietnam foreign policy, China plays a very important role, and Vietnam consider Vietnam-China relations as a strategic choice. They are very close neighbors. They also share a lot of similarities, including the structures of the political systems, and also because of Vietnam's geopolitical positions in the regions.
Vietnam's Communist Party lost its last General Secretary just last month, when old guard Mr. Nguyễn Phú Trọng died from illness. Mr. Lam, who was already then Vietnam's president, continued his rapid ascent among the governing elites. A decades-long veteran in Vietnam's public security apparatus, he went from being Vietnam's chief policeman to president and then the general secretary, all in less than 3 months. A new face in Vietnam's next generation of leadership. His most recent prominent engagement in foreign policy was in June, when he hosted in Hanoi President Putin of Russia, another country with strong historical ties to Vietnam. And with Mr. Xi, Mr. Lam will want to push forward the implementations of key agreements that his predecessors had sealed during the Chinese president's visit to Hanoi last December, especially the agreement of building a Vietnam-China community with a shared future.
I think this visit is very a symbolic one, and I don't think there is any breakthrough. And I think the visits also emphasize that Vietnam also views China as a strategic choice and a comprehensive strategic partnership. Secretary General and President To Lam also want to send a message that he wants to follow the legacy of the late Secretary General Nguyễn Phú Trọng.
Mr. Lam will also seek progress in areas of key economic cooperation with China, market access for Vietnam's agricultural products, high-quality investments, and the construction of high-speed rail lines connecting China to Hanoi and key Vietnamese port cities.
China is the largest trading partner of Vietnam, and of course, Vietnam is now still suffering a trade deficit. I think that's also one of the issues that might be discussed. The trade deficits between Vietnam and China now, it clearly shows that Vietnam's inputs for industrial products heavily relied on China.
The visit to China this time takes place amid rising tensions in the disputed waters. This year also marks the 10th year anniversary of an incident that sparked anti-China protests in Vietnam, spiking tensions between the two sides after Beijing placed an oil rig off Vietnam's coast. Bilateral tensions in the South China Sea has been relatively well contained since. In fact, observers note that in the past 2 years, Vietnam has stepped up construction there without apparent objection or interference from China. A key discussion in Beijing during Mr. Lam's visit to China will be to manage the maritime dispute.
Vietnam considers China as a strategic choice. And on the other hand, Vietnam considers the United States as a strategic priority. So, of course, we all see the rivalry between China and the US now is growing up. Vietnam want to keep the balance in the relationship between both countries because Vietnam's development really needs a very peaceful environment.
The visit of Mr. Lam to Beijing will also be closely watched by his domestic public, which holds deep suspicion of China because of centuries of wars against invaders from its northern neighbor throughout Vietnam's history.
Đối với Trung Quốc là ưu tiên số 1, quan hệ hữu nghị bao rộng giữ vững nhưng phải giữ ổn định, hòa bình ổn định Biển Đông. Thành ra giữ hòa bình ổn định thì lợi hơn. Chứ còn nhiều người các nói là ta không sợ Trung Quốc, đánh thì đánh nhưng mà đánh thì tất nhiên là cũng thiệt hại, mà cũng có những cái như Ukraine bây giờ đấy, nhiều người ta nói bảo cái anh ấy phải học tập Việt Nam thì đất nước hòa bình mà vẫn giữ vững độc bộ.
Vietnam's relation with its giant neighbor is a complex one, and Mr. Lam's upcoming visit will add a new chapter in the country's long shared history. Tung, CNA, Hà Nội.